And we're back on Take Action News. This is Daniel Marins in for David Shuster today on Saturday, February 23rd. Continuing to join and talk with me now about foreign policy and also the Academy Awards is Zed Jelani. Zed, thanks for joining us again.
Oh, no problem. Good to be here.
Now, Zed, you and I saw a movie last year that was nominated for one of the Academy Awards for Best Documentary, and that movie is Five Broken Cameras. You've since recommended it to many people online on social media. I know that it's kind of caught fire in some way. Obviously, it was nominated for an Academy Award, and Michael Moore has promoted it, his own Traverse City Film Festival. Michael Moore has sort of taken up the task of promoting it. It tells the story of a Palestinian man who becomes involved in a nonviolent movement to protest the illegal seizure of their land by Israeli settlers with the aid with the aid of the Israeli government and the impunity that they receive for violent acts against Palestinians and vandalism, whereas the violent reaction that is given to the Palestinian nonviolent protesters. Obviously, the symbolism is five broken cameras, because over the course of the movie, you see 5 years, more than 5 years, years and years of protesting, and 5 different cameras get broken by the Israeli military during that time. Zed, it was a very moving movie. What about it moved you the most?
You know, when the film opened up, if you're a modern movie watcher, you might have the reaction of, well, this is, it's kind of blurry footage. It's sort of, it looks like a homemade documentary, like something your dad might shoot, with his camcorder. But, you quickly get past that, because what the gentleman in the film is doing, the filmmaker, is remarkable in that he has decided to document the human tragedy going on around him with these 5, broken video cameras. And I think what's really important to show to people from it is that, in these debates about the Middle East, Israel, Palestine, whatever, you very rarely, in the United States anyway, see just a very honest, first-person portrayal from a Palestinian just on the ground there. And especially, you don't see a portrayal that shows someone who is using the sort of tactics that you see in this Palestinian village that's, being encroached on by settlers who are, more or less like colonials, like early American colonials, right? Like grabbing more and more land, that sort of thing. You don't see the Palestinian narrative of how people on the ground there are using, protests, rallies, video work, working with international activists to resist that. You're more likely to see, images of Hamas, people with AK-47s, violence. I think there's so many people that don't know that this huge nonviolent movement is happening in Palestine against this occupation. And I think when people see that, they realize that this is something they can't be on the sidelines with. I mean, you talk to so many progressives, and I'm sure, I do, I'm sure you do, who will tell you, that's really sad what's happening over there, but it doesn't have anything to do with us. Or, there's nothing we can do about it. But when you see things like this, you realize there is something that we have to do about it, because it's a human tragedy that's occurring, mostly for Palestinians, but also for Israelis as well, which I'm sure we'll get to later in the conversation. But, when you see films like this, you realize that we should care about the fact that, the United States gives $3 billion plus to Israel every year in military, mostly military aid, and that we should care about what's being done with that money, and that we should hold, Palestinians and Israelis to our values and to our I guess our
Zed, I couldn't agree more. And I really, growing up, obviously, I have some disagreements with some progressive. I don't think that, for instance, I'm not necessarily in favor. I'm not in favor of creating a binational state. I would like to see. I think it's okay. I don't think it is outside the bounds for Israel to control, let's say, its immigration with preferences towards Jewish people. But obviously, and that's, having gone there many times, I do believe it serves a purpose for Jewish people. And you and I have gone back and forth on that, but I am adamantly opposed to denying people their rights. And in fact, almost more so because it's being done in the name of the Jewish people and in the name of the Jewish state. And so few people do know that we're always told, well, I was always told growing up, well, we agree with the Palestinians' cause, but we don't support their means. Well, Well, then you better get behind the people that are doing it nonviolently and are getting violently repressed. There was another Israeli movie. I mean, well, or rather, this one was a Palestinian movie mostly, and there's another Israeli movie up for nomination called The Gatekeepers, about that really takes a look at all the heads of Israel's domestic intelligence service, the Shin Bet, and how really interviews a lot of them about the tactics that were used in the occupation and how they've come around to see this as a brutal system that is ultimately self-defeating. You and I, neither of us have seen that at this point, full disclosure. But what is your take on it? I mean, to me, it seems, isn't it just a left wing Israeli perspective on the same sort of issue?
Yeah, and disclosure, I'm actually seeing it tonight, so I guess if it was future me, maybe I'll have a different opinion. But yeah, I mean, from what we've seen from the clips, trailers, reviews, it's the other side of the coin, but it has, I guess, at the end, the same message, right? So basically, what happens in the film, for listeners who may not know, is that for the first time, all the former heads of Shin Bet, which is the Israeli intelligence service, sat down with the director and talked about their experiences leading the intelligence agency. But really, in doing this, they talk about the conflict as a whole, and they talk about how, in their mind, Israel, was constantly evolving its tactics in terms of dealing with the Palestinians, in terms of, how do we best stop this terrorist attack, or how do we best, put down this uprising, stop this violence. But Israel sort of lost hand of the strategy in the sense that it failed to bring Israel on a path to real negotiations that would lead to a Palestinian self-determination that ultimately would bring peace to Israel. And it's remarkable from the press released around it. You'll see that some of the Shin Bet directors are probably more critical than you'll ever see in an American senator being, right. For example,
Well,
we
that's certainly
both
that I
go ahead.
gotta. Unfortunately, we gotta leave it right there. But I know you and I will be watching the Academy Awards closely. Zed Jalani, thanks so much for joining us.